So there's a chapter which is a conversation about revolution and neurodiversity, and I'm talking about Aspergerstan. So Daniel is an incredibly important person in the neurodiversity scene. I see him as sort of a gang leader of all the neurodivergent people. So he's brought many people together. Daniel himself is diagnosed with dyspraxia, and so he identifies as a neurodiverse person. I have a different diagnosis, and the neurodiversity movement is mainly led by autistic people. He's spoken at my festival DIY Cultures, where he did a long table, and he has this gatherings around Queen Mary University and the Harold Pinter Theatre. I think that's where we first met. And the MA called Mental Health and Art is something he runs. And he's just been important for unintentionally becoming the gang leader of every neurodivergent artist and performer. In fact, I've been requested as a guest tutor by several neurodivergent students, and it's the first time they've ever come across someone who has ADHD or dyspraxia or dyslexia. We even thought of this sort of alliance when there was an event called Max Dysprax in Queen Mary University, and Daniel supported me financially through decent pay when I've developed work with him, and that's not why I'm saying his book's great, by the way. So everyone should read this interested in the concept of neurodiversity. I often see that people from the US and people from the UK have very little interaction. So the big neurodiversity symposium I spoke at Brown University, an Ivy League in Providence, USA, it's like I was the only foreign speaker. There was lots of stuff happening in Britain. No one in Britain was aware of this neurodiversity movement. Even the leaders of the neurodivergent Labour movement, which is a neurodiverse branch within John McDonnell and Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party, which I voted to find, led by an autistic poet called Janine Booth. So Daniel, we had this idea of this this is the Shy Power Salute for Aspergerstan Intrafada movement, right? So we had this idea. I met this other performance artist who was dyslexic or dyspraxic, so it was like, oh, this would be like the Dyspraxistan. So Aspergerstan would be in alliance with Dyspraxistan and Dyslexistan. I can't remember what the power symbol was there. And so we'd all be in this together, like global international alliance. I guess a bit like Marvel superheroes or something. So this is the longest piece of writing published outside my book, and it's a really good conversation that you should all read. What do I think of safe spaces? It's assumed sometimes that I'm acquiescent with some of the sort of student union subculture, and I am certainly not. And I answer that question. What is the role of fantasy or fiction in my projects? What do I regard as fiction? So I'm answering that question. The question of aesthetics, so like DIY aesthetics versus maximalist aesthetics. What are imaginary worlds? So this conversation is between three practitioners, and I'm going to show you the name of the third one. I'm not going to embarrass myself because I actually can't pronounce her name. That's really bad, since I've grown up with people who always pronounce my name wrong, so I know how it feels to be white sometimes. And she's done a fantastic contribution to the dialogue, looking at her interest in Yoruba and maximalist African science fiction. So dryness is truth. So I'm talking about like dry academic prose. Why is it assumed to be objective? Am I being ironic, or do I mean it? What's the space of drifting, staring at the clouds, in terms of identity politics? Are people ignorant? Solitary confinement. How do people keep their imagination alive? And then I'd finally talk about computer games and whether they've influenced me or not and my writing, which is the final question. And a lot of the artists I've worked with, like Chloe Spicer here, who's also dyspraxic, who actually introduced me to this crew. Look, Daniel's really sweetly signed it there. Hamja, thank you. I'm really excited about the role of Accidental Loud in Show Radicals. Daniel was like, oh, it has a bit of Deleuze babble and Zizekin, but he is an academic and he is white, so that's what you do, right? So it was also interesting in terms of the format of the long table, which is a format from experimental theatre. Lois Weaver, a feminist performance artist, I think she's originally from New York, invented this format in her work, The Public Address System, and it's something I've done again. I did it in Wendy's Subway in Brooklyn, New York. So Daniel calls the long table, spelled with a R-O-N-G. So there's a particular way in which the neurodivergent movement has sort of reclaimed this space of the long table. If you don't know what a long table is, Google long table Lois Weaver, and it has a series of rules. It's a participatory form in experimental theatre, and so people can write at the table, not listen. There's all sorts of other forms of communication that are sort of non-verbal. I was seen as a cause for concern at school, problems with verbal communication or something, by some horrible bullying secondary school teacher or something like that. So you can get this in e-format, so you can download a PDF from the Live Art Development Agency. Daniel has also made a neurodiversity guide for the Live Art Development Agency, which includes me. So download that. It's a fantastic starting point if you've never heard of neurodiversity or what it might mean for the arts. And he's always performing all the time. You can follow him on Twitter, go to his website, so highly recommended. So this is me championing my friend, mentor, ally and supporter, Daniel Oliver. Thank you.